You're listening to the podcast for all of the news, notes, and breakdowns for your Ohio State Buckeyes. This is Sons of the Shoe with Nick Wilson and Spencer German.
The Sons of the Shoe rides again. Nick Wilson, Spencer German back with you. Hey guys, how you doing? A lot to talk about. Big news out of Columbus earlier today as we have a new starting quarterback, or an officially anointed starting quarterback. But as we are a new podcast, please make sure to subscribe to the Sons of the Shoe podcast wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify. Have I mentioned Apple? Also 923thefan.com and the free Odyssey app. Please also make sure to subscribe to the 92.3 The Fan YouTube channel and give us a follow there. Like our videos. We like to be liked, damn it. But Spencer, hi, how are you?
Good. Can't complain. I know we've missed each other the last couple weeks, at least specific to the show. But I tried to hold down the fort. That's the right word I'm looking for. Without you. And I actually thought, I don't know if you had a chance to listen back to last week's episode, but I thought the conversation I had with Alec Dietz from the Eugene, I knew I was going to forget, the USA Today paper out of Eugene was really good. He had some good stuff to say, I think, about just Oregon in general and sort of their expectations. And I think one of the big questions about them is like, is it going to be more of an adjustment for them to Big Ten football, or is it going to be more of an adjustment from Big Ten football to Oregon?
So I did listen. I thought Alec was amazing. And what's funny is, because you butchered one or two things there, every time I've tried to recall his name on air on Afternoon Drive on 92.3 The Fan, by the way, every time I've tried to remember Alec's name while promoting our podcast in live reads, I've stopped short. Because I keep going, is it Alec or is it Alex? And so for those of you who don't know how this works, when you are talking live on air and there is a kernel of self-doubt, when you have a truncated window to finish a read, it really ratchets up the pressure. So I can say your interview with Alec was fantastic, as was your reaction to that. The Harbaugh stuff was great. So really, really well done, and I appreciate you. It's so funny, dude. We're going into football season, and I thought I still had time to finish summer, and it didn't. No, it's done. It's done.
Just like that.
The personal life decided, you know what? Those 3 weeks you were going to use soaking up the sun and playing with your rascals. No, that's gone now. And football Nick is here. And he's a unscrupulous son of a bitch that works too damn much, but here we are. And you mentioned it. The big news, I think I mentioned it. I teased it. The big news of the day, the kangaroo court is over. That's right. There is white smoke, or maybe silver and gray, or, scarlet and gray. Jesus, I'm doing a great job at this. Take two. There's scarlet and gray smoke billowing from the plumes at Ohio Stadium as there is a new pope at quarterback. Will Howard has officially been named the Buckeye starting quarterback. Devin Brown is QB2. Spencer, who would have guessed it? Who would have guessed the guy that everybody realized you paid a shit ton of money in NIL to come here from Kansas State? Who would have guessed that guy, who'd been the favorite the entire time, would end up actually being the Buckeye starting quarterback?
To quote Paul Rudd in that the interview he did on Hot Ones, not me.
Not me. Not us. Look at us.
Not us. We had no idea. Not us. Look at us. No, yeah, I think this was par for the course. And I texted with some people who covered the team regularly leading up to today's announcement. They were all saying they'd be shocked if it was anybody but Will Howard. And yeah, you brought him in here for a reason. And clearly, I think throughout camp and even during the spring game, there was moments that stood out about why he's the choice. I also think too, a lot of this, Nick, to me, it feels about just like trust level in certain moments, right? Like Will Howard is a proven quarterback in college at this point. I understand it was Kansas State, which isn't, the big wigs of college football in terms of competing for championships.
But Kansas State's been really good, and he was really good at Kansas State.
No, well, but that's what I mean though. Like he's had moments, he's been in those high stress situations, end of a game, need a comeback drive, all those different things, and the rest of that room just hasn't. I mean, even Devin Brown, who's been part of this program for several years now, he hasn't really experienced that. So I mean, I think that has to be like the biggest reason why you went and got him, and the biggest reason why he's your starter today and going into the season, just because you don't trust the other guys yet to live up to those or perform in those moments. And that's what the season is about for Ryan Day. It's about performing in the Michigan game and not feeling the stress of that moment. It's about being able to deliver in the college football playoff and go chase a championship. Like, you can't talk a big game about championship or bust like that program is doing and then have it fall short because, well, you have a freshman quarterback who's kind of learning on the fly as he goes. And that's no disrespect to those guys. I think they're going to be great quarterbacks. I just think they need more time. And so Howard was the obvious choice, and it makes a lot of sense for just where the state of the program going into this season. Yeah,
it's funny. Any which way they actually did lean, there was going to be cynicism about it. That's just the way this is. If you had said, all right, it's going to be one of the freshmen, people would be like, oh, this is an all-in season and you're going to go with a freshman as your starting quarterback. If you had gone with Devin Brown, people would have griped that you spent too much on a guy who's going to be your backup in Will Howard. But, Ryan Day called out his command of the huddle. And it's funny because Big Ten Media Days, a little bit, back in the rearview mirror, Ryan Day was not ready to announce a starter. Last week, Ryan Day was not ready to announce a starter. And then along the way, though, he talked about leadership, command of the huddle, command of the offense. And that all the breadcrumbs were leading to Will Howard. And it's funny, because any which way that they would have gone, there was going to be cynicism from somebody. I also think any which way that you had not gone, or any which way, even though we all knew within some realm of certainty, it was very likely to be Will Howard. I thought the reaction, if the reaction is, oh yeah, how anticlimactic, that's a funny reaction. But if your reaction is then to shit on Will Howard, that I don't understand. Because I think when you talk about walks like, looks like, acts like, face of your program quarterback, that is Will Howard. He is 6'5". He is 250. He is a very mobile quarterback, where that's going to really be great with Quinshon Judkins in the red zone. He does have a really good arm. And I think you start to add all those things together. It's so funny because people go, well, but Kansas State, he's never been on this level. Yeah, which means he's never played with this kind of talent. So this is a guy who is a very proficient quarterback, a very talented quarterback at Kansas State, and now you're plugging him into a supercharged machine where, you didn't need much more from Kyle McCord to win a national championship last year. Don't throw the first pick against Michigan. That's where the conversation starts. Or it's the little consistencies with a quarterback. So if he's even only marginally better than Kyle McCord, and you can add the legs component, I think that's more than enough to win a championship. And here's the thing. That's the bottom bar. The top of the bar is this dude has played a butt ton of football and catapults himself maybe into a top 60 pick in the NFL draft and outshines all expectations. And that's where you talk about maybe not just competing for a national championship, but maybe running away with one and truly being the best team in college football.
Yeah, I think you're right about it being a marginal difference in terms of what Ohio State needed last year at that position specifically to chase a championship. And I also think too, along those lines of how how much, what level of quarterback play is enough. We've seen for years, I understand at the NFL level, we talk about this all the time, quarterback is the most important. And I'm not saying quarterback doesn't matter in college, it does. But we've seen, just fine quarterbacks, like not your 5-star guy. Stetson Bennett is a perfect example of this. He won two championships back to back on the backs of having an absolutely loaded roster around him at Georgia, both on defense and on offense. Like that roster was loaded with talent across the board that helped kind of lift him. And listen, he did have to show up in certain moments. Like, it wasn't like he was making no plays out there, but that's, I think, what I sort of see with Will Howard is like a guy who can make those plays for you in those moments. He gives you the ability to run with the quarterback, which we know the complaints when CJ Stroud was here about Ryan Day not doing that enough. But now you come in, Chip Kelly taking over the play calling. His offense is very much based in that. And he's going to want to run the football with that position and with the running backs that they have, which is part of the reason why they got Quinshon Judkins to add him to the mix. So, yeah, like they clearly they have such a stacked roster around him, whether it's Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka and, the wide receiver talent, plus the running back room, all that, to kind of lift him, even if he isn't the world's greatest quarterback. And, I think there's other quarterbacks out there that they were interested in during the offseason. We know that. Cam Ward was one who I actually was the highest on. I know there were some talks about Riley Leonard, but he wanted to go to Notre Dame. So maybe it wasn't their first choice, even though they pitched it that way. But I still think he gives you enough to accomplish what you want to accomplish this year, especially with everything around him. And he kind of alluded to that too, Nick. I talked about it on last week's show. He had that quote in his media availability 2 weeks ago where he basically, or I guess last week, where he said, I feel like I don't have to do it all. And on some level, that's true. Like, the quarterback's always going to be looked at first when something goes wrong, or if in a big spot, like, you got to be the one stepping up and delivering in that moment. But that is made easier by the fact that you have so much talent around you to help raise that bar, or raise you to that next level and make those plays. And that's why we were, I think, so surprised last year that Kyle McCord struggled as much as he did in spots, because we thought, like, how does this guy lose with so much talent around him? And they did end up going undefeated up until the Michigan game, but still it was like, how can you possibly struggle this much with this much talent around you? We were stunned by it. And I think the difference now is, like, Will Howard has that, but he's also a better player.
Well, and here's the other thing with McCord. And I don't want to dump on the kid. He bailed on the program because I think he felt like he would have had to fight and sing for his supper, and there were other opportunities. That's totally okay. I think he was the weak spot last year. But I think the problem with Kyle is, I don't care what he looked like in game 1 last year. I went from game 1 to game 4. All right, is there discernible step forward, either in ease and comfort in the pocket, either in terms of consistently delivering the ball better, placing the ball better, just basic decision making, right? And then from game 4 to game 7, and then from game 7 to game 10. And the problem is that I never saw it. He looked the same to me in every game. All the shortcomings look the same to me. And so it's funny, like, I know you can go out there, you're going to hang 70 on Akron, in game 1, and then you're going to go, and then the next game. But like, what I'm looking for from Will Howard is, once you get 4 games in and the games start to count in Michigan State and Iowa, all right, as the competition gets better, I am going to want to see you get better. And by the time you get to Oregon, October 12th, that might be the high water mark, maybe the most important game this season, even though you got Penn State, who's, I think, 8th, even though you got Michigan late in the season, who's ranked 9th. Well, that's preseason stuff. I know that Oregon is bona fide. That is a national championship contender. So, okay, after Oregon, do I see, because you've had to raise your bar going up against one of the elite talented teams in college football, do I see you continue to get better after that? And the thing that was rough about Kyle is he looked the same against Rutgers as he did against Penn State. Yeah. He looked the same against Notre Dame as he did, a team that was fighting and scratching and clawing to put 3 up or 7 up or 10 up on Ohio State, that had no business being in those kind of games. And that's where I think we're missing with Will. It's not just about where he starts, but can you see that consistent progression from him in his first year with all this talent around him?
Yeah, I mean, he's a veteran player too, so whether or not he has like a lot more to his ceiling, I guess remains to be seen. But I do think like different program, getting more comfortable with your players, like all that stuff matters in terms of seeing those improvements. And to your point, like think about CJ Stroud's development, right? Like that first game he played against Minnesota on a Thursday night, I think it was, he was okay. Second half was better than the first half, but you saw the progression of his game as the season went on to the point where we sat there by the time the Michigan game rolled around and we were like, this kid's legit. They have a chance to win this game against Michigan because he's so damn good. And I agree with you. Like that's what fans are going to be looking for from Will Howard as well as the season. It's kind of goes along with the philosophy of college football in general. You're not always going to be playing your best games at the beginning of the season. What do you look like? What you look like at week 12, week 13, conference championship weekend is what matters more than what you look like in the first, couple games of any given season. So that progression does matter.
So while we're talking about this, Will Howard being named the starting quarterback, Devin Brown is QB2 at least for that Akron game. We'll see if there's any kind of shuffling, if they give the freshmen a chance, whether in blowouts you see any of the young players. There is something, though, that I think we have missed on talking about this. And it is. I'm going to call it the Kyle McCord effect for how we think about Ohio State and the offense. We're going to get to that next, but first, a quick word from our sponsors.